Thank you. I declare the February Ordinary Council meeting open and welcome councillors, staff and members of the gallery. It's lovely to see so many people in the gallery today. Disclaimer, members of the public are advised that recommendations to council contained within this agenda can be subject to change. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until written advice is received confirming council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development application made during an ordinary council meeting is not to be taken as notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council. Council members and the community are reminded that should an exception resolution be passed, this has the effect of making the decision to accept the officer recommendation stated in the agenda as the council's decision without change. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming, and these proceedings will be uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures, and to elders and emerging elders both past and present. Procedural motion. I put forth the following: that council suspend Standing Orders Part 8, Clause 8.5. Members to indicate their intention to speak and to rise when speaking, to allow members to remain seated when speaking, to improve the quality of the audio recording of the meeting. Do I have a seconder, councillors? Councillor Capra-Grego. I gather there's no debate around this one. I'll just put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Coleman needs to put up her hand. She didn't actually find it. Thank you. Records of apology and leave of absence. Councillor Coleman requested to attend Tuesday the 25th of February 2025 Ordinary Council meeting electronically in accordance with Regulation 14C2B of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996. I have approved this request and I'm satisfied that the location from which Councillor Coleman intends to attend the meeting and the equipment that the member intends to use to attend the meeting is suitable for the member to be able to effectively engage in deliberations and communications during the meeting as per Regulation 14C5 and 14D6 of the regulations. Councillor Coleman, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Apologies, nil, and leave of absence. We have Councillor Borland and Councillor Holly on approved leave of absence. Applications for leave of absence. Councillors, Councillor Crispin.
Hey, thank you. I was just wondering if I could, for the April the 15th, and then if I could, by any chance, like zoom in on the 22nd, the OCM for that one. So just absence for leave for April the 15th.
The Zoom will be fine, so it's just for the leave of absence on April the 15th.
April the 15th, please.
Okay, so do I have a mover for that one? Councillor Capra-Grego, a seconder. Councillor Dickinson, no debate. I'll put that one to the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Declarations of members and officers' personal interest are up on the screen. Councillors, are there any others or staff?
Oh.
Councillor Hitchcock.
I need to declare an impartiality interest in the, I think it's 12.5.1, the community grants, because I'm a member of Lot 208.
Thank you. Any others, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Madam President. In the item unhosted 12.3.1 and 12.3.2. Although I have hosted shared accommodation, I'll declare an impartiality just for the record.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Okay, we will then move on to 5 questions by members of which due notice has been given is nil. 6, response to previous questions taken on notice is nil. Public question time. Councillors, we have a few members of the gallery. I invite Mrs. Ferguson to come forward, please, in regards to item 12.3.1. Welcome, Mrs. Ferguson.
Thank you. Will you please record my questions and the background information as I ask them and not summarise them as permitted by standing orders?
Mrs. Ferguson, I'll make sure that the background to your question is fully notated into the minutes, so there is the clarity there. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions arising from item 12.1.3. They're all quite brief. At the electors' AGM, I noted that the cost of catering and wine for the Mocha dinner was $8,726 and asked how many councillors, staff and others attended and how much per head it worked out to be. The questions were taken on notice and an answer is provided in this agenda. How do you justify to ratepayers who paid for the dinner that 59 people who were not from Mocha attended? Catering and wine cost over $120 a head, apart from any other costs.
Did you want to?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. Look, the guest list on that actually was an extensive guest list of members within the community that do benefit indirectly quite greatly with the Mocha City friendship relationship, and so I would not consider it to be an unreasonable size in terms of the guest list, and catering, that's not, in my opinion, considered unreasonable for the benefit that the broader community of Harvey actually receives from an event such as that.
Who were the 7 others? If they were not councillors, shire staff, members of parliament or a spouse of one of those groups, a school principal, teacher or from the media, local business or local industry, who were they?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'd need to take that on notice.
We'll take that one on notice, thanks, Mrs. Ferguson.
Because the response that was given in the agenda just says other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you guarantee that at any future visits by a delegation from Mocha will not include a dinner paid for by ratepayers for anything like 72 people?
Mrs. Ferguson, we can't guarantee that moving forward. However, we are cognizant of your concerns that you have raised in regards to the number of people that have attended the dinner, and we'll be aware of that when planning future activities in regards to Mocha.
Thank you. When I asked that question, I never expected a figure like that. There hasn't been too many jaw-dropping moments in my life, but that was one of them. I couldn't believe that there were 72. At the AGM, I pointed out that 2 separate entries dated 29th of November read Mocha Event Harvey Lions Club, 1,300, and Amana Inn Motel Harvey Accommodation Shire Staff, 5,520. And asked if the items were related, how many staff were accommodated at the motel, why and for how long. As I was unable to provide the EFT reference numbers, the questions were taken on notice. I've not been contacted and it has not been answered under item 12.1.3. The EFT for the Lions Club event is 69217 and for accommodation for Shire staff it is 69232. Both payments are dated 29th November 2023. The payment for staff accommodation was to NV Engineering Proprietary Limited, which I understand owns Amana Inn Motel. Given that information, can you answer my questions?
We will take those ones on notice, Mrs.
Thank you.
Ferguson.
At the AGM, I pointed out that incoming visits, by which I meant by delegates from Mocha, are not subject to council approval but are considered by the Shire President and CEO. In view of the fact that the incoming visit in 2023 had cost ratepayers more than the outgoing visit in 2024, I asked if council would consider, at a meeting in the near future, requiring that a budget for incoming visits be presented to council in the same way that a budget is required for outgoing visits. The answer was yes, that the policy would be reviewed. Later in the meeting, because I had been invited by the President to turn a similar question into a motion, which had been passed 13-1, and because I understood a motion from the meeting to carry more weight than a question, I turned my question into a motion which was lost 4-8. I then said, so the response to my question before is what stands, and the reply was yes. This is not recorded in the minutes. Please will you say when the policy will be reviewed, will the result be presented to council?
Mrs. Ferguson will need to review the recording of that meeting. If it is not a motion of the meeting, it does not need to be recorded. However, we will review the minutes to make sure that they are thorough and reflect the actual conversations and the questions asked.
Thank you. So this will come back to the next meeting as taken on notice.
It's a question on notice,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you very much. The agenda for this meeting states, at this stage, no official delegation visit is planned for next financial year other than student exchange visits with teachers, page 15, and an allocation of $10,000 to $15,000 is proposed for the Shire's draft 2025-26 budget for Friendship Cities activities. That's on page 22. If no official delegation visits are planned, what expenses are proposed that require an allocation of $10,000 to $15,000?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think the telling part of that sentence is at this stage, things can change throughout the financial year, and it's considered appropriate that a budget allocation can cover off future contingencies. And yeah, just because there's an allocation there doesn't mean we would actually spend it.
Because in previous papers I have seen that a visit was foreshadowed for the end of 2025, which is in contradiction of the statement in this agenda.
Mrs. Ferguson, as Mr. Hall has said, we put that in as a contingency. At this stage, there is no planned visit by the City of Mocha to the Shire of Harvey or vice versa.
Thank you. At the AGM, a councillor mentioned that councillors often ask questions about payments, and there were several at the agenda briefing last week. When councillors submit questions in advance, the question and answer are not usually read out, so members of the public have no way of knowing what they were. For the benefit of the public, so we have an opportunity to know what councillors are questioning and what the responses are, can the questions and answers submitted by councillors in advance be read out in future?
Mrs. Ferguson, generally I asked if the councillor would like the question, if they would like to ask the question. Sometimes there are a number of questions there and the councillor is quite happy for them to be distributed to the councillors via email. There is always the opportunity offered to the councillor to ask the questions so that there is a public record.
But it's making them available to the members of the public that is...
I understand that, Mrs. Ferguson, and I've already had this questioned by councillors. At this stage, I'm not making all those questions available to the public. However, each individual councillor is offered the opportunity to ask the question so that there is a public record.
I think it's unfortunate because the perception by the public is we're not aware of what questions are asked, and a councillor raised it, and that's why I think there's often some misunderstandings.
I understand that, Mrs Ferguson.
Thank you.
But it's up to the individual councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got two questions about payments for accommodation this financial year. Most payments for accommodation give details of the purpose, for example, reimbursement of staff accommodation to attend the State of Social Conference, $1,789, but they do not say how many people it was for or for how many nights. Some payments for accommodation just say seminar, conference or training, or simply accommodation shire staff with no reason given. Will you in future give information on payments for accommodation, including the purpose and how many people and how many nights it was for?
CEO?
As detailed at the annual and general electors meeting, I made the commentary that the list of payments doesn't provide all of the details of all of the invoices that some payments may relate to. So there's not the ability to be able to provide that level of detail in that report.
So is that seen as something that needs to be improved so that it is more transparent?
Computer system does not allow a report that provides that level of detail.
But is it seen as something that's a drawback? Is it an aspiration that you can, is it an aspiration for you to be able to provide more detail so it's more transparent?
The statutory requirements in regards to providing the list of payments to council details that it needs to provide the creditor and a brief summary. We don't have the systems that allow that level of detail to be provided on the individual invoices that make up a payment. Councillors have the opportunity to ask those questions, as do the members of the public, and on those specific ones we can provide that level of detail.
5 payments totalling $5,200 were for accommodation for staff in Harvey or Bunbury with no reason given. Would you please say in each case why it was necessary for staff to be provided with accommodation, why no information was given, the number of people accommodated and for how many nights? I have the 5 here. Would you like me to read out the EFT details?
Yeah, Mrs Ferguson, I think they relate to when we had an acting CEO, Mr Mark Newman, for that period, and while the CEO was away, so he required accommodation, and my understanding is that those EFTs relate to accommodating our acting CEO.
Well, could I ask you to take it on notice so that that can be checked, so that we know you...
Most certainly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Ferguson. All right, I'd like to invite Tanya Masitano forward. Tanya, welcome. You have a question?
My name's Tanya. I'm from the Brunswick Tennis Club, active secretary. So, as you know, we've already received a tender offer from a local contractor, Carboni Brothers, for the court resurfacing project. The quote entails there's a cost received for the whole project. I was just wondering if we were able to utilise Carboni Brothers for the prep work and the subsurface layer, but approach a court contractor for a quote on the actual tennis playing surface.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll put that through to Mr Faber.
We've actually put out a whole of tender, so that's what is going to be considered today. If council considers that and approves that, then the tender will be as put out, so there won't be an opportunity to split that tender up and only offer a portion to the contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Julianne Hill. Julianne, welcome.
Thank you. Hello everyone, how are you going? Also the gallery, like you two aren't, but all the rest of these are tennis people. Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first one is you're tonight voting on the 3 versus 4 courts, plus making good the 4th court if it's 3. We do know that Labor, Robin, talked to the Shire mid-2024 to say that she wanted to know costings of the project. that she wanted to put an election promise towards the project. Didn't receive that information until December. That meant she couldn't get it to Treasury and approved in time for the project. I'd just like to know what might have happened there. So if you could give me a bit of an explanation of why that didn't happen, because it would have definitely changed your opinion on this. We also had the Liberal guy who probably won't get in, but has also given us an election promise of $500,000 to finish the project. Robin has also said she will support the project as well, perhaps not to that much, but is very keen to support it. My second question is around the quotes that you received. We'd love to know what they are. We are a partner in this and we'd love to know what they are so we know what we're up for in our own budgeting. So when you can, we would like to know what that is. Thank you.
I'll go through to the CEO for your first question.
Yes, thank you for the question in regards to an approach by our local member of the Labor Party in regards to potential funding for the project. I have no awareness that any approach has been made to the Shire for any costings relating to the tennis club for that project. I am unaware that she has received any costings in December 2024. Very open to any funding that may be provided by the local member towards this project. And as you've mentioned, we did meet with David Bolt on Friday, and I know that he met with yourselves in regards to providing funding, and we do have that election commitment. So I'm unaware of any approach. If the local member would like to provide that information to me, then I can collaborate it, but nothing received as far as I'm aware. In regards to the other question, I'll pass through to the Director of Infrastructure Services.
What was the second question?
When can we find out how much?
I guess with the confidentiality goes around tenders, we're unable to provide that information. So we wouldn't be able to provide that to you as part of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Faber. I might go through to Ms. Williams at that one. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair. So the details of the tender will be provided on the local government's tender register after award, which will happen at today's council meeting. Information in relation to the contract is considered commercial in confidence, so we're unable to share that information. However, if we have agreement in writing from the contractor to release information to a third party, we can facilitate that. So in the first instance, the information will be provided on the tender register, which will include the contract price, and we can certainly, after contract award, make an approach to the contractor to release the commercial in confidence information.
Thank you. Mr. Talbot, come forward. You've got a big show on. You've got a question and then you'll follow up with the deputation. So we'll deal with the question first.
Question first. Thank you, Madam President. My question, before I get into the question, probably the background of the question, when I stood here back in September, we were discussing the 3 and 4 court option, and part of the problem we faced there then was a particular estimate that had been gathered by the council from a company in Bunbury, an engineering company called Edgelow, and the question I asked was how much was it, and some months later I got the reply to say it was $15,411. My question is around community involvement in projects, and that particular night I presented a quote, and incidentally from the same company that's put the tender in, which I did for nothing, and it cost nothing to do. The quote was a genuine quote. I was just disappointed that now we're getting down to whether we're going to have 3 or 4 courts. That $15,411 would have gone a long way towards helping this project come to fruition. So I get a little disappointed when we're told as a community group that we can't be involved in this, that we don't know what we're doing. I think this is part of the issue we're getting to now with a lot of our clubs and projects that are happening. They're blowing out in costs because we aren't, as a community, involved. So I stand here today representing the Lions Club, also the Ag Society. These people over here are all the same. So my question, and what's happened since then, is I've been inundated with local support to help get this project up and running. As a community, we are devastated to see our courts the way they are. We're devastated to see the kids not playing tennis, but we're also very devastated for the group of people over here who are actually running this tennis club, who are volunteers. So as a community and people that can help, and Councillor Capra-Grego came up with a great suggestion last time I was here, get the Shire trucks involved, get them to come and help. Let's try and save some money somewhere to make this happen. So my question is, can we as a community get involved in this to get this project over the line and get it done? If it needs help, there's something we can do. We have contractors, locals that were wishing to help, donate materials and be involved. Can we still do this under Shire supervision, as we have done in all the years gone by? The Brunswick Tennis Club has a history of something around about 70 odd years. Everything that's on that court, on that ground, including the ground which was donated to the community by the Heppingstone brothers way back in the day, invested into the Brunswick Agricultural Society, everything is donated there. The buildings, the fence, the court, everything was done. Anything that's been done in latter years, we have done with Shire help, and we've asked for minimal amounts. So my question is, can we still do this under Shire supervision? Can we still help and try to get the cost of this project back inside where it needs to be to get 4 courts?
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. In short, I would say that unfortunately those days where the community were called upon to do volunteer work and the like have changed, have moved on. But through the CEO, can you respond to this one? Or
I guess consistent with my previous one, we don't have the opportunity to split this project up and get other people involved in it. We also have a lot of requirements around our occupational health and safety and different things that we're required to make sure that we're compliant with. The tender process gets a contractor that can provide all of those. So at the moment, the opportunity for your committee or the public to get involved isn't available. So I guess the short answer would be no. At this point in time, there is no opportunity for the community to get involved, to get the project over the line. Tonight, council will make a decision on the project going forward. If they agree to move the project forward, then it'll be managed in-house through the Shire, and the contract will be undertaken as per the specifications.
Can I just ask one? Respond to that, mate. The question is, the vote will be tonight is whether we go to 3 or 4 courts, correct? Is that going to be still considered?
it will be appointing the tender. So whether it's 3 or 4 courts, that will also be a decision of council, and awarding the tender.
So my point is, if we end up at the point where it's only going to be 3 courts, as a community, we want to make sure it's 4 courts, and we will do whatever we've got to do it. So if the tender is only going to be for 3, can we be involved in building the 4th?
Through the chair, the opportunity still wouldn't be there whether it's a 3 or 4 court decision. Council, if they vote tonight on that option to be 3 courts, then the contract will still be in place for that contractor to undertake those works according to the specification and the tender documents. So unfortunately, there's not an opportunity for you guys to get involved.
Okay. All right.
Don't take a seat, Mr. Talbot. You're welcome to come forward now for your, if there's no further questions from the gallery, come forward for your deputation. Thanks, Mr. Talbot.
Thank you again, Madam President. Look, my deputation was a little about to appeal to the councillors tonight at the importance of this particular vote. Our tennis club, I put down here that I stand out there as a 3rd generation of one family to play on that particular tennis court. I brought my mum along here tonight, who's a 2nd generation to play on there, and her mother was one of the founding members of that club. So we're going back 70 odd years ago. And as I said earlier on, we've done nothing. We've never really asked for much down there. We've done it pretty well ourselves. My point is, I feel that with the growing population in our area, and as someone that's pretty passionate about seeing young families move to our area, we have to have something there for them to do. So my deputation on the lines of the importance of having a vibrant tennis club there. We have no other junior sport being played in the area. Everything's moved out to Leschenault. A lot of money being spent out there for juniors out there. We need something done here in Brunswick. So I feel that we have the population growing in the area, especially at that subdivision at the back of Rollins, which is right alongside me. Absolutely fantastic up there. There is heaps and heaps of young families have moved into there with lots of young kids. And I feel now it is super important for Brunswick to have something in there that it will attract those kids and families into the centre of our town. And the tennis club is a great example of what we can do. We have our footy club there alongside. We have lots of great things happening, but they're all mainly senior orientated. So the tennis club is the one thing I feel that we've got in our town for kids. So my deputation is a little bit appealing to all you councillors. Please back us on this. Trust us on what we're doing, and trust these ladies over here with where they're going with the future of this. And I want to see my grandkids be the fifth generation to play on those courts. So thank you, and I anticipate your vote shortly.
Thank you, Mr Talbot. No other deputations? Mrs Ferguson?
Yes, I did fill the form in.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Yes, please come forward. I thought that was a question.
My deputation is about the motion I moved at the electors' AGM, which reads, in view of the costs which are paid by ratepayers, would Council at a meeting in the near future consider placing a limit on the number of incoming and outgoing visits with Mocha City under the Friendship City Agreement? It was passed 13-1, and the question of whether or not a limit should be placed on the number of visits is therefore now under consideration. This motion is about accountability to your electorate, transparency in governance, and responsible use of public money, cornerstones on which our democratic system of government is based. If passed, it would not restrict, quote, the number of students and teachers that visit, nor investors or other relevant parties, unquote, as implied by the officer comment, unless they were part of an official delegation paid for by Council under the Friendship City Agreement. No reasons for voting against the motion have been presented in this agenda. The comments that delegations to Mocha from the USA and Taiwan were larger than the delegation from Harvey, and that future delegations may be smaller than those last year and the year before, are not relevant. Many people can't attend council meetings, but the high level of interest in matters such as this is illustrated by the fact that there have been 227 views of the electors' AGM. I believe if you ask those 227 people, or if you surveyed the wider community, there would be a strong consensus that a limit should be placed on the number of incoming and outgoing visits with our Friendship City Mocha, which ratepayers pay for, but over which we have no control. As no reasons for voting against the motion have been given, I ask you to vote in favour of placing a limit on the number of incoming and outgoing visits with Mocha City under the Friendship City Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Ferguson. No other deputations? Thank you. I'll move on to confirmation of minutes. We have an officer's recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of January 2025 as printed be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover, councillors? Councillor Carboni, seconder. Councillor Bromham, any discussion? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Alrighty. Motion to change order of business. I put forth that council take the agenda out of order to consider item 17.2.1, which is T112024, tender for the redevelopment of the Brunswick Tennis Court, before the rest of the agenda. Do I have a seconder for that, Councillor Carboni? Is there likely to be any discussion around that one, councillors? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. 9-0. Thank you.
I'll move that we go behind closed doors.
Thank you, Councillor Carboni. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bromham. Any discussion? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. 9-0. For those in the gallery, we'll just move behind closed doors. We've brought this item forward so that we can deal with it, so you don't have to sit through the remainder of the ordinary council meeting. Yes, please. Thank you, everybody, for coming back in. And before I read the decision of council, can I acknowledge the passion that's been shown by the Brunswick community in getting this project up and running. It has gone for a long time, but I think you'll be pleased to know that the tender has been awarded for the Brunswick tennis courts to Carboni Brothers for 4 courts. We will be amending the budget review, during the budget review process to accommodate the additional funding, and maybe we will get some additional funding through from the election, but we'll wait and see. But at this stage, we will be proceeding with 4 courts for Brunswick Tennis Court. So well done and congratulations. You're welcome to sit through the rest of the meeting or make your way out and do whatever you'd like to do. Are you out there, Mr. Fry? All right, councillors, we'll get back into the agenda. So item 12.1.1, which is the local government election 2025. Trish? We have an officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover for this requiring absolute majority? Councillor Bromham. A seconder, Councillor Carboni. Any discussion? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Noting Councillor Coleman's declaration of interest in regard to this item, 12.1.2, the lease for the Rotary Club of Harvey. Officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dickinson. A seconder, Councillor Capra-Grego. Any discussion over this one, councillors? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Item 12.1.3, annual general meeting of electors. There are 2 parts to this one. We have an officer's recommendation, 1 of 2. Do I have a mover for this one? Councillor Bromham. A seconder, Councillor Dickinson. Is there any discussion or questions around this part 1 of 2? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Officer's recommendation 2 of 2. Do I have a mover for this one? Councillor Carboni, seconder. Councillor Dickinson. Any discussion or questions, councillors? Put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. 12.1.4, Welga feedback, CEO matters and online register. Quite a lengthy report in there. So do I have a mover for this one, councillors? Councillor Bromham, seconder, Councillor Dickinson. Any discussion or questions over this one, councillors? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 9-0. Infrastructure Services, item 12.2.1, Cathedral Avenue Shared Path. We have the officer's recommendation there. Do I have any mover for this one, councillors? Councillor Carboni, a seconder, Councillor Capra-Grego. Any discussion, councillors? All right, put this one to the... Oh, Councillor Coleman. Question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious, how many trees were we talking about? How many of the paperbark trees were we talking about that were in the way?
Mr Faber?
I'd have to take that on notice, Madam Chairperson. I don't have the actual number of trees, but they are in a protected area through there, and I think there is quite a few.
Okay, a local arborist suggested that they weren't the protected sort of the paperbark tree. So I was wondering what the cost would be to remove the trees rather than purchase the land.
Through the chair, my understanding is that to get the clearing, we've had issues previously in discussions with DPOR and others, and I don't think we would actually get those permissions to remove them through that area. We've had discussions with paperbarks on the other side of the road as well. And I think that was the reason that Rick put this forward in the first instance, was to move and look at purchasing the land.
Okay, so you're suggesting that they are the protected ones, the particular brand, the particular species that is protected?
I would need to just double check that through the chair, but I guess there's other matters that would need to be considered in trying to put the path through those particular treed areas. So it wasn't just about the trees themselves. I think they're in a wetland, so having to bring the land up to that level as well and against the road edge wasn't probably considered to be the right choice at that time.
Okay, and we didn't have the same problem with the path on either side of the trees?
Through the chair, I can't comment on that. I wasn't part of that project, so I'm not aware of the requirements that they had to go through to get that area done.
Okay, thank you. I'm just concerned, whether or not it was cost effective to buy the land as opposed to removing some of the trees that potentially are not protected. So that's where my question's coming from.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Are there any other questions? Debate on this one? No, I'll put this one to the vote then. All those in favour? Against? 8-1. Thank you. Sustainable Development 12.3.1. There was some additional information in regards to this item, which is just around wording. Mr Hall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the attachment of the draft policy that was attached in the policy purpose, it could imply that it was 12 months and an additional 24 relating to up to 36, where it should actually read an additional 12 months, so that it's a total of 24 months. And camping is not the only form of accommodation that can be included, so the wording in 4.1 has been updated to include temporary accommodation.
All right. Do I have a mover for this officer's recommendation, councillors?
Any question?
Let me just get it on the table first. So do I have a mover, Councillor Dickinson? Seconder, Councillor Hitchcock. Question, Councillor Bromham.
Thank you, through the chair. When you say temporary accommodation, what are you referring to? I'm looking at a tent or
Now, temporary accommodation could form, say, a caravan park home, so anything that can be considered other than just camping under the caravan and camping ground regs.
so things like tiny houses on wheels and things like that?
Anything that complies with the caravan and camping ground regs, councillor.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Item 12.3.2, which is the final adoption of the Local Planning Policy 6.2.1, unhosted short-term rental accommodation. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bromham. Seconder, Councillor Carboni. Any discussion? Councillor Bromham?
No, I think we've basically gone through this quite a few times. So I think everyone's aware of the requirement for this and the legislation that sits behind it.
Councillor Carboni? Any other discussion, councillors? Questions? No, I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Corporate services, 12.4.1, payments for January 2025. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Capra-Grego, a seconder. Councillor Dickinson. Any discussion? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 9-0.
Councillor Coleman was against.
Councillor Coleman, I'm just confirming your vote for or against?
No, for, sorry.
For, yeah, that's okay. There
I
was
had my
just a
hand
little tiny lapse there, so I'm just confirming. That's okay. No, all good. 9-0.
Had the
Thank
hand
you.
up too long, sorry.
12.4.2, financial statements as at the 31st of January. Oh, we've got the officer's recommendation there. Do I have a mover for this one? Councillor Carboni, seconder, Councillor Bromham. Any discussion over these ones? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Alrighty, so we're now up to 12.4.3, which is the budget review 24-25. There are two parts to this and require an absolute majority. So we'll move with officer's recommendation 1 of 2. Yep, so do I have a mover for this part 1 of 2? Councillor Bromham, a seconder. Councillor Crispin. Is there any discussion in regards to this one, councillors? No. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. We'll now move to the officer's recommendation 2 of 2. Is this inclusive of the amendment?
Thank you, Madam President. We've included the word addendum up the top with the attachments and also in this table below. The attachments have actually been amended and will be included later. If you go down further to community lifestyle, keep going a bit further, the bottom of this section a little bit further, there's $70,000 there on the screen. And so in effect, what we're doing is we're taking, we had $250,000 in budget for the Leschenault Rec Park Oval 7 and 8 design. Of that $250,000, 70 was being funded from municipal fund and 180,000 was being funded from the Public Open Space Trust account. And so we've reallocated the municipal portion here. And then if you go further down the screen to the bottom of the infrastructure section, you'll see there's, keep going, good, stop, there, $70,000, and that's where we're reallocating that $70,000 to the project. It makes nil impact on the totals because it's in and out.
Thank you for that, Mr. Winter. All right, so with the amended, as discussed there, do I have a mover? Oh, Councillor Coleman, sorry, question?
Yes, thanks, Madam President. Just 2 questions. On the very top line, the consultant for the strategic plan wanted an extra 20,000. Just wondering why, when I thought in the budget, the original budget was only 40,000 anyway for a number of consultants. So if I could just get that one sort of talked through, and then I've just got one more.
Through the chair, I can answer that one. It's a project we're working on in our team. So originally we were proposing we'd use Catalyse for the community scorecard, which is due, and we did one 4 years ago, and that was to be the only part of the project that they were working on. However, Catalyse also demonstrated with their work with various other councils how to create the new council plan under the new reform framework. So we're actually working in partnership with the consultant in the delivery of the plan and creation of the actions from the survey as well. So that's the extra expense. The last strategic plan, we interpreted the results of the scorecard, which worked well. However, with their experience in creating the new council plans, we thought having their help would be advantageous.
And it makes sense, yeah. Thank you very much for that response. And then down under Parks and Gardens, major maintenance, there's an expense in brackets there, just looking to get talked through, of 998,828 as an expense. Just wondering if we could get a bit of an update on such a high amount in a budget review, please. Yeah, there it is.
Are you right, Mr Faber, to answer that one? Thank you.
Through the chair, if you look into the description, there's actually 3 projects within that figure. So we've got the 790,000 for the Harvey playground and associated infrastructure, and then there's also the additional funds that we needed to put towards the Oval 2 project that came to council last month as a tender. And then part of that also was we had a reduction in the LRP timber walkways that contributed towards that as well.
Okay, and so that's all going into this year's budget?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do I have a mover for this part 2, councillors? Councillor Dickinson, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Crispin? Any discussion, Councillor Dickinson? No. Councillor Crispin? Any questions or discussion? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. And thank you to staff for the work in putting all of that together. And it can't be easy, but well done. Thank you. Community and Lifestyle 12.5.1, the Shire of Harvey Community Grant Program, Partnership Agreements. We have an officer's recommendation here. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bromham, seconder. Councillor Capra-Grego. Councillor Bromham, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, through the chair. I just think this is a good way of moving forward in relation to events that the Shire hold every year. So, and it gives the organisations that assist us in doing this some certainty.
Councillor Capra-Grego? No. Any discussion? Councillors? No. I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Against? It's nil. Carried 9-0. Thank you. 12.5.2, which is the Coastal Community Fund consultation. This requires an absolute majority. We have an officer's recommendation here. Do I have a mover for this one? Councillor Junio. A seconder? Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Junio, did you wish to speak to this? No. Councillor Dickinson? No. Any discussion, councillors? No. I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. All righty. Elected members' motions of which previous notice has been given is nil. Notice of motion for following meetings is nil. I'll get in quickly before Councillor Carboni puts his hands up. Reports of members, hopefully they've all been sent in. New business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of meeting is nil. There are a couple of more items that we need to deal with behind closed doors. So if I can have a mover, Councillor Carboni, seconder, Councillor Capra-Grego. Put that one to the vote. All those in favour that we move behind closed doors? 9-0. Thank you. We're right, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Whilst we were behind closed doors, there were 2 council resolutions. The first one dealing with the CEO's leave, that council authorises the Shire President to approve the Chief Executive Officer leave in accordance with section 9.1 of the Chief Executive Officer's contract. And the second resolution deals with Welga Energy Project Phase 2, which was resolved as written. Thank you. Being no more further business, I declare this ordinary council meeting for February 2025 closed at 6:05.